Welcome, everyone. I am Mike Dobmeyer, Vice Chairperson of the Zoning Board of Appeals. The Zoning Board of Appeals is a 9-member volunteer citizen board appointed by the mayor and confirmed by the City Council. First, we will hear from the Planning and Development Services Unit represented by John Barrett. Then the petitioner or his or her representative will make his or her presentation. The board members may ask questions of either the city or the petitioner. We will acknowledge any written comments received by the board. We will allow an appearing party to express their support or objections. The board will discuss the appeal and formulate a resolution to approve the appeal. It will require 5 affirmative votes of the board for a variance to be granted. Finally, any qualified party who is aggrieved by a decision of the board can appeal that decision to the Washtenaw County Circuit Court on a timely basis. Okay, we'll start with roll call. Candace Breyer, Mike Daniel, Dave DeVarty.
Here.
Mike Dobmeyer, I am here. Nicole Eisenman.
Here.
Todd Grant.
Here.
Julie Weatherby.
Here.
Elizabeth Nelson. Charlotte Wilson.
Here.
Okay, there are 6 of us here, which means we have a quorum. First thing we'll do is we'll approve the agenda. Did anyone have any comments on the agenda or a motion to approve the agenda? So moved by David, second by Todd. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the agenda is approved. Next, we have approval of the minutes. It looks like we've got the minutes from the February 27th, 2019 meeting here. Did anyone have any comments on the minutes from that meeting or a motion to approve?
Motion to approve?
From Todd?
Second.
Second from Julie. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the minutes from that meeting are approved. Next, we'll move along to appeals and hearings. The first one we have today is ZBA 19-005, 1016 Daniel Street. John?
I'm John Barrett, zoning coordinator for the city of Ann Arbor. The first petition this evening is property 1016 Daniel Street. Daniel Adams, property owner, is requesting a variance from Chapter 55 Unified Development Code, Table 5:17-1, Single-Family Residential Zoning District Dimensions. The petitioners are seeking to construct a 411-square-foot addition that will connect the existing detached garage to the residence. The connection will result in a 14-foot, 3-inch variance from the required rear yard setback. The property is zoned R2A, 2-family, but the R1D single-family setbacks apply as the use of the property is single-family. The subject property is located at the corner of Daniel Street and Brook Ridge Road across from Hunt Park. The home was built in 1952 and is approximately 1,170 square feet in size. The new construction will consist of an additional garage parking space, a mudroom, and a small eating area and an extension of the existing kitchen. These new living areas will be built within the allowable setbacks. The connection of the 2 structures places the garage in a non-conforming status with the rear setback. If you'll turn your attention to the monitor, you'll see the location map, and the property is highlighted in yellow. It's just south of Sunset Road and east of Hunt Park at the corner of Brook Ridge and Daniel Street. Next slide is the aerial photo showing the surrounding neighborhood and existing conditions. The next slide is the zoomed-in aerial photo, and it's a little difficult to see, but the detached garage is right in this area, and they'll be making the connection with the principal structure right in here. And you'll see in the next slides of the site plan. This is the existing survey that was submitted with the application. And the next slide is the site plan that was submitted and making the connection with an additional garage space and a mudroom and a small eating area. Another floor plan that was submitted with the application. And this is showing where, when they make this connection, the area that's hatched, it will not be, no new construction in this area will not be affected. But once the connection is made between the principal and the detached structure, this is the area that will need the variance for the setback. This is the roof plan that was submitted with the application. These are the elevations. You can see from the side, the existing house, and then the existing garage and the addition, looking towards the south. And this is looking from the north. You see the front porch, the existing house, and the garage. And this is what the elevations, how the finished product would appear. Looking at it from directly at the front of the house, and you see the connection, the addition right here and on both sides, and from the rear of the house on the bottom. And this is an interior schematic that was submitted with the application showing the additional kitchen area. These are the photos that I took when I was out at the site. You see the existing conditions, the house and the garage as they relate to one another. And you see here's standing on the driveway and the detached garage and the separation between the two structures. This is looking directly in the rear yard. And this is the north side of the garage and the relationship with the side property line and adjacent properties. This is looking at the rear of the garage and the rear property line. And this is standing on Brook Ridge looking at the side elevation of the property. And you see the grade variation from the street up to the house. And this is standing on the garage or the driveway, looking at the garage and the adjacent property to the north. And that is all the photos I have, and that is my presentation. I'll take any questions at this time.
Thanks, John. Any questions for staff? Julie?
So all the new construction is in a permitted area?
Correct. It's within the building envelope. It's just once that connection's made, that puts it in the rear of that garage into the rear setback.
Okay, thank you.
Dave?
It looks like there were two doors on the existing garage for a two-car garage. And I'm wondering, it's just going to be a one-door entry with stacked vehicles or storage back there? Or are they doing some additional living space in that garage area?
No new living space in the garage. I believe it's going to be a one-car garage. You drive straight in, and it'll be the existing garage is here, and this is all new entryway. But the applicant and his architect are here to
Okay.
further elaborate on that.
Okay. Other questions for staff? Dave?
What is it looks like there's some setback from the rear property line and the side property line right now. How much is that setback?
It's 5 feet 9 inches.
And that's in the rear
Correct.
and on the side?
The side is, the side is they're only required the 3 feet.
Okay,
But
so,
what-
and
so 'cause-
it exists within that?
Correct. There's, the 3 foot is that hatch line right here, and they meet that. Because it's
Gotcha.
R1D with a 3 foot side yard. It's
Okay.
just this back section right in here.
Thank
But it's
you.
all existing, and so once the connection's made, it just places it. So there really aren't any changes.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, if the petitioner's here and they'd like to step up, you can introduce yourself, sign in, and you'll have 5 minutes. 5 minutes or 3? 5.
Hi, my name is Dan Adams. I'm the petitioner and the co-property owner. My wife Lisa is around the corner. Wanted to talk a little bit about the history of our ownership of the property and the project and our petition. So when we bought the house, doing this renovation was sort of inevitable. We have a galley-style kitchen in the house, and if we don't have any photos of it, but I mean, the dining room table's almost in the refrigerator. It's a pretty tight space. So we knew we were going to have to punch out somewhere at some point. And when we began working with Meadowlark on the project, we're familiar with the variance process, and we didn't want to ask for a variance. Our preference was to build out back, but we knew that was going to be tight with the orientation of the structures and the location of the rear setback. So we asked Meadowlark to build out into the driveway because that was buildable space. That wasn't the best option for us. Board Member DeVarty, I think you pointed out, it's actually going to be a two-car garage, but we're going to have to stack them up with the kitchen in front of it.
Right.
That was just what was inevitable with the location of the house, the garage, and where we could build. So we're kind of forced into this in part because we didn't want to apply for a variance. Now, what changed is in July of 2018, 5 or 6 months into the design phase, the law changed. So when the city moved to the Unified Development Code and the definition of accessory building changed, then suddenly the garage that we were attaching to counted against our setback. So that's why we're here. Couple of reasons why I think granting the variance is appropriate. One, I think, Ms. Weatherby, as you pointed out, we're not building any new structures into the setback area. Everything that's new is going to be in the buildable space. Second, we're not prejudicing our neighbors in any respect. So the only structure that's in the rear setback, the garage, that's going to be there whether the variance is granted tonight or not. We've asked as many neighbors as we could find over spring break whether they support. Many of them have submitted declarations in support. Nobody indicated that they were opposed to it. The other thing, you can see this from the photos, the rear of the garage, the part that's in the setback, you really can't, it's difficult to see from any of the other properties, particularly when there's foliage on the trees. There's a wooded space back there. There's a kind of a dirt embankment to the north side, and then there's a privacy fence running along most of the back of the property. I do want to talk about, though, whether, if the variance isn't granted. So we worked with Meadowlark from February through July when the law changed on these designs, and we did these designs to avoid needing a variance. When the law changed, we continued to work. We didn't know about the changes. But if the variance isn't denied, we'll lose the benefit of a lot of that work. We'll have to start over and figure out a new strategy to do this. And that wasn't an insignificant amount of money and time. Now, that's, I wanted to talk about a similar case that came before the board in January that had a similar issue. This was the, I think, 800 Princeton Court or Princeton Street petition. And just like us, they had started their design work before the city shifted over to the Unified Development Code. And they had a similar issue with an attached garage. We're kind of in the same boat. We spent a lot of money and time before the law changed, and here we are, and we're hoping that we can go forward with the work that we've done to date. Finally, one thing that wasn't in our application that I wanted to highlight, it's not just about attaching the garage to the house for convenience sake. As you can see, some of the reason we're attaching to it is that we're building in front of it. I'm not sure it makes sense to build in front of it and not attach, and I'm not even sure how we would do it. We haven't explored it. But another reason we want to attach is that in the wintertime, the sun comes over the top of the house, and the house shades the driveway, and what happens is it kind of ices. And every time we leave, we go out that door, we've got to traverse from the side of the house all the way to the garage. It's a hazard, and we're hoping to mitigate that through this project. Just in closing, we're committed to this house. There's a lot of construction going on in our neighborhood. A lot of it is knockdowns and rebuilds. We like this house. We want to improve it. We want to make it something that can accommodate our growing family, and this variance would really help us do that. So I really would appreciate getting the variance, and so we can move forward with this. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Dan. Any questions for the petitioner? Once, twice? All right, thank you. If there's anyone from the public that wishes to address the board on this one, feel free to step up. Okay, great. Please introduce yourself, sign in, and you'll have 2 minutes.
My name is Jimmy Bevilacqua. I'm a designer at Meadowlark Builders, and I've worked with the Adams. So I'm here just to kind of reiterate the timeline of our work with the Adams. They actually approached us in 2015 when we started this. They approached us to kind of do an addition for their kitchen. When we were looking at kind of the possibilities there, we were thinking about some designs that maybe would go into the backyard. But at the time, we were using the R2A setbacks as kind of, instead of the R1D, which we're using now, which the Unified Development Code allows us to do for single-family purpose. So we were thinking, oh, well, we might have to ask for a variance if we go and kind of doing a kitchen addition in the back of the house. Then we tabled that. We didn't want to ask for that variance. We ended up doing kind of an exterior remodel with them and put up the front porch on the house with the notion that we come back to this. They came back to us this past year it was in February, where they engaged us again with kind of saying, let's consider some new ideas, right? And we did not want to come and ask for a variance for it. So looking again, at that point, we were still looking at kind of the R2A setback, and that rear setback was basically up against hugging the house. And so we were looking at going to the side, right? We went to the side of the house, it blocks the garage, and the only way that we could think of giving them a two-car garage at that point was doing it as a stacked garage, and then leaving the kind of additional garage bay as additional storage space. So it wasn't until, let's see, this January that it came to my attention that the definition now of the accessory structure says that the attached accessory structure has to be within the building envelope of the primary structure. You know, I think when I referenced the UDC, I'm sorry. When I referenced the UDC for the setbacks, in the accessory building setback area, there was no change to the language where it says an attached structure, you know, cannot sit in the side setback, but an attached garage. It didn't say anything clearly about an attached garage in the rear setback, and so that's why it was missed, and there was, you know, 4 months of design that was already done.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Are there any questions? All right. If there's anyone else from the public that'd like to step up? Okay. I'll note that we received, it looks like 6 signatures of support from owners in the neighborhood. Most appear to be on Daniel Street. There's one neighbor from Sunset Street. Okay, we are in discussion. Todd?
Well, I'm in favor of this. Mr. Adams was quite articulate about the thinking that went into this, as well as his designer. And I think they are here because of an artifact in changing the zoning ordinance to the Unified Development Code from last year. But apart from the good thinking that went into this, I note that there's really no change to the existing footprint of the garage. And there's not going to be any further increase into the setback. So for all those reasons, I'll be voting yes on this. I can see you're shaking your head, Dave. You're in agreement. Yeah.
Anyone else? Or a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, Dave?
Petition ZBA 19-005, 1016 Daniel Street. Variance, based on the following findings of fact and in accordance with the established standards for approval, the Zoning Board of Appeals hereby grants the following variance from Chapter 55 Unified Development Code, Table 5:17-1, Single-Family Residential Zoning District Dimensions. A variance of 14 feet 3 inches from the 20-foot required rear setback to allow construction of a 411 square foot addition to connect the detached garage to the residence. The construction is to be built per the submitted plans. A, the alleged practical difficulties are peculiar to the property and result from conditions which do not exist generally throughout the city. B, that the practical difficulties which will result from a failure to grant the variance include substantially more than mere inconvenience, inability to attain a higher financial return, or both. C, the variance, if granted, will not significantly affect surrounding properties. D, the circumstances of the variance request are not self-imposed. E, the variance request is the minimum necessary to achieve reasonable use of the land or structure.
Do we have a second from Julie? Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. Charlotte?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Todd?
Yes.
Nicole?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
And I vote yes. The variance is approved. Moving on to the next petition. This is ZBA 19-006. The address is 500 Maple Ridge Street. John?
Stephanie Rosales, the property owner, is requesting a variance from Chapter 55, the Unified Development Code, Table 5:17-1, Single-Family Residential Zoning District Dimensions. The petitioners are seeking a 2-foot 3-inch variance in order to lift the existing residence 1 foot above the base flood elevation. The petitioners are seeking to increase the height limit to 32 feet 3 inches. The maximum height for a single-family home in the R1D district is 30 feet. The subject property is located south of Miller Road near West Park. The home was built in 1941 and is approximately 1,190 square feet in size. The property is located in the floodway area of the floodplain. The new construction will consist of a full renovation to include lifting the home and filling the basement in order to bring the property in compliance with flood-resistant construction standards in the Michigan Residential Building Code for structures located in the floodplain. The lifting of the home will allow for construction of a new level to help alleviate the loss of basement floor area. If you'll turn your attention to the monitors, the first slide is the location map. You see the property is highlighted in yellow. It's just south of Miller Avenue along Maple Ridge Street. The next slide is the aerial photo showing surrounding neighborhoods and existing conditions. The third slide is a zoomed-in aerial photo of the property. See it right here, and directly to the south is a vacant lot. The next slide is the survey that was submitted with the application. This isn't coming up very well on the PowerPoint presentation, but it's in your packets. You'll see the site plan that was submitted with the application. Some of these didn't come out very well, but the next slide is the basement demolition plan along with a first floor demolition plan. And the following slides are a ground floor that will contain mechanical equipment and a storage area. The next level will contain a living area and kitchen area. And the subsequent slides are elevation drawings showing the different floors, and in the darkened areas where the basement filling will be taking place. You can see the different elevations, just showing from different perspectives of the house and the filled-in basement area. And I'm just going to go through these because it's difficult to see. These are the photos that I took when I was out at the property. You see the existing home from the front elevation. This is the side elevation of the home. This is the rear of the home. It's adjacent property to the north. This is the adjacent vacant property to the south. And these are the properties located across the street. At this time, I'm going to call Jerry Hancock up. He's our city floodplain coordinator, and he's going to give some more detailed information about this project.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Jerry Hancock. I'm the city's Stormwater and Floodplain Programs Coordinator. This particular house, being in the floodway, it actually has been damaged a couple times in floods. This type of situation FEMA calls a repetitive loss structure. They typically don't allow me to reveal that type of information, but the owner has given me permission to do that. And as part of the city being involved in a program through the National Flood Insurance Program called the Community Rating System, we are actually obligated to reach out to owners of repetitive loss structures to assist them in mitigating their properties, to bring them into either compliance with the building code or just to get them safer so that they're not experiencing flood losses. So the petitioner actually came to me with a solution to elevate this house but not up high enough to get it to meet the building code, which would have required openings to be put in around the first floor, and by the building code it would have been restricted in use to storage and access, which wouldn't have been a very good long-term use since you'd have an entire floor that you couldn't really use
use much, and it would be subject to water coming in and out of the house. So I actually recommended that they come to the ZBA to seek this variance to bring it into full compliance with the building code by elevating the first floor up 1 foot above the base flood elevation. Do you have any questions for me at this time?
Okay. Dave?
So I know there's a branch of Allen Creek, I think, that comes through West Park and into this area.
Yes, that's
But
correct.
Where does the flooding water come from? Is it running down the streets, or is it coming out of the, back up out of the closed-in Allen Creek tributary?
So both. So it would come from the west, moving to the east.
Right.
And when the pipe reaches capacity, which
It
would
blows
be.
the manhole covers off.
It comes out, right. But it would also be coming through the street system to try to get into the pipe system, which if it's full, it starts piling up in the street. Actually, the vacant lot that's next to the property is owned by the city. There was a house on the property, and we demolished it and just kept the property because it's all floodway there.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Thanks, Jerry. John, did you have anything else to say?
No, I was just going to say that, Jerry and I discussed this, and Jerry has recommended that this variance be granted based on getting this property into that, out of the status of this floodplain.
Okay. Any questions for staff? Nope. Okay. If the petitioner's here and they would like to address the board, they can step up. Please introduce yourself, sign in, and you'll have 5 minutes.
Hi, I'm McLean Clutter. I'm the designer working for the petitioner.
And I'm Stephanie Rosales, one of the petitioners.
I'm not sure that we have much to add after Mr. Barrett and Mr. Hancock. I would just reiterate that the goal here is to lift the structure in the renovation to bring the structure into compliance with building code. We're lifting the structure. Mr. Barrett, I'm not sure if you can go to the elevation just so it's clear to the board. A303 is the drawing that I think we need most clear. We're lifting the structure so that the existing first floor will move all the way up to become the second floor. And basically everything that you see that has no siding at the bottom there will be an entirely new level. Without a variance, we can do this, but we would not be able to lift that new first floor sufficiently so that it is 1 foot above the base flood elevation, which would bring the structure into compliance with building code. If we're not granted this variance, what will happen is that we would have to install, as Mr. Hancock said, flood vents, engineered flood vents on this new first floor. That would be both costly to install the vents, but also, moreover, it would make it so that we would have to hang the mechanical systems from the ceiling above so that they would be more than 1 foot above the BFE. And it would also render that space basically unusable, even as storage, recognizing that anything that is stored there could and would get flooded in the event of a flood. And so in our conversations, it's become clear that it is really financially not viable to bring this structure up to code if we're not granted this variance because of the amount of practical space that the clients would lose in the renovation. And then to that, I would just add and reiterate that the parcel, the land directly to the south is vacant. All of the land parcels, all of the property further yet to the south is higher in elevation than this property. So those houses already significantly tower over this existing house. The rear yard is a generous 84 feet right now, so the impact to the neighbors on that side, I think, would be negligible. And even though the property that is existing right now to the north is closer to Maple Ridge, the impact that this would have on them is really negligible. I think it would amount to a few minutes of sunlight at dead, in the middle of the summer when the sun is really high. So we think that the impact to the surrounding community would really be rather low. And I think that's all we have.
All right, thank you. Any questions for the petitioner? Todd?
Well, really, just a couple of comments. I would say, Ms. Rosales, you must really like this home. I mean, it's in a nice area. You're near the park and the band shell, but this is obviously a major project. And the second thing I would hope is you get a really good contractor and one who's licensed. Be careful.
Absolutely. I will say, very briefly, we've lived in Ann Arbor, 20 odd years. We didn't know that there was a flood zone, and so we were really excited. Our son's at BA, he's in the 4th grade, and when we bought the house, we were told it was at the flood zone. We were told it was maybe $1,000. We looked at what the former owners paid, and when we bought the house, and we said, oh yeah, we want to update it, we want to do some changes to the outside, we want to fix it up, we're really excited, we found out about all the limitations that come with it. And that was really tough to figure out, okay, well, what do we do now? We've invested into this is our home, this is our family. And it's been a learning process. We've had multiple conversations with FEMA, Jerry and John and McLean, so it would mean a lot to us.
Thanks. Any other questions for the petitioner? Dave?
I'm just curious, your lifting this structure, it's a 1941, it's an old structure. Are you doing, like, gutting it and doing a total rebuild inside? Because it seems like now would be the time to do that, to upgrade all the internal workings and modernize the wiring and plumbing and everything.
The first floor, the existing first floor will be a full renovation, and then I do expect that we will have to bring certainly the electrical and plumbing up to code as well in the renovation. But the floor plan of the existing second floor will not change significantly.
And so the existing first floor will become the second floor?
Yes, and the existing second floor will be a third floor.
Okay, yeah.
Any other questions for the petitioner? Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks.
If there are any members of the public that would like to address the board on this, feel free to step up. Okay, seeing no one, we are in discussion.
Well, I've sort of tipped my hand. I'm in favor of this.
Dave?
I'll just say, to me, this is a pretty easy, it's a minimal ask. You're doing a big lift to get it out of the floodplain, and you're asking for what, a foot or a couple feet? And, yeah, it's just it's clear to me that you've done everything you can to minimize what you need in order to make this happen. So I'll be happy to support this.
Julie?
Yeah, I think I went through this neighborhood today looking, and, the houses aren't all the same height. They're not all the same house where this is going to ultimately look really strange or anything. I think it's a good solution, and, we want those houses out of the floodplain. So I can't imagine anyone is not going to want to do this, or we're looking at not having that house there. And I think that this seems like a good compromise for making it livable and safe.
Anything else? Or a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, Dave?
Petition ZBA 19-006, 500 Maple Ridge Street. Variance, based on the following findings of fact and in accordance with the established standards for approval, the Zoning Board of Appeals hereby grants the following variance from Chapter 55, Unified Development Code, Table 5:17-1, Single-Family Residential Zoning District Dimensions. A variance of 2 feet 3 inches from the 30-foot maximum height restriction to allow construction of a new floor level in the residence, increasing the overall height to 32 feet 3 inches. The construction is to be built per the submitted plans. A, the alleged practical difficulties are peculiar to the property and result from conditions which do not exist generally throughout the city. B, that the practical difficulties which will result from failure to grant the variance include substantially more than mere inconvenience, inability to attain a higher financial return, or both. C, the variance, if granted, will not significantly affect surrounding properties. D, the circumstances of the variance request are not self-imposed. E, the variance request is the minimum necessary to achieve reasonable use of the land or structure.
Okay, do we have support? From Nicole. We'll do a roll call vote. Julie?
Yes.
Todd?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Nicole?
Yes.
Charlotte?
Yes.
And I also vote yes. The variance is approved. That is it for appeals and hearings. If there's anyone else who's a member of the public that wishes to address the board in a different capacity? No, we have no unfinished business, no new business. Do we have motion to adjourn? Dave?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. We're adjourned.